Velkomin á þennan morgunverðarfund nettópsopinna kerfa. Ég heiti María Ingimsdóttir og framkvæmdastjóri ráðgjafarsins í opnum kerfum. Fyrirlesturinn í dag fjallar málefni sem að flestir að eiga við svona dagstæðlega, öryggismál, og það hvernig við verjum gögnin okkar og samskiptin hjá fyrirtækin okkar. Og við höfum fengið til okkar fyrirlesara frá Cisco í Noregi, Andre Lambertsen. Andre Cisco CCIE og bæði í security og routing og switching. Og við ætlum að hafa þetta stutt og start, keyra þetta og endum hérna klukkan 10, þannig að gjör svo vel, Andre, floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, good morning everyone. As she said, my name is Andre Lambertsen. Been working with Cisco for 9 years and doing security all the time. So I'm covering kind of security across all verticals and all customers. And previously I used to work for the incumbent service provider in Norway, Telenor. So I did routing switching for many years. So I've done a lot of things actually. Today I'm going to take you through some things, mostly regarding SourceFire and some new technologies that we bought in October, and why that is important and how that complements our existing portfolio. So this is the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about the new security model, which is, I think, is kind of important, and also drop into SIO, Security Intelligence Operation, and the ASA next generation firewall and the 5500X kind of thing. To get things started, we bought a company in October, a small company called SourceFire, which has been in the marketplace for quite some years. And they started out in 2001 with something called Snort, which is an open source kind of thing for IDS, IPS signatures. And they have been highly successful for many years, and they are regarded the best kind of next generation IPS in the marketplace today, and that is why we actually bought them. As you can see, they have done quite a few things during the years. They came out pretty early with a pretty fast IPS, 20 gigs of transactional throughput, and they also have today like a 50 gig appliance, which is also pretty fast for transactional. And more importantly, they came out with something called FireAmp, which is advanced malware protection, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that during the presentation. The other thing that we got was the vulnerability research team, which is a complement thing to our security intelligence operation. I will talk a little bit more about that also, why that is important, but it has to do with reputation, and reputation today is key to be able to stop malware and threats coming into your network from different places. If you have questions, please ask them as we go along. Don't wait until the end. So just raise your hand and ask questions. I'll try to stay up here. Normally I like to walk around when I do presentations, but because of the camera and the microphones, I have to stay here. So I'll try to do that. And raise your hand if you can hear me, if I move away from the microphones. SourceFire product portfolio has been in the marketplace for many years. As I said, they are used today in various technologies and at various customers, defense, healthcare, and so forth. And one of the things that is highly appreciated by customers is typically that they have like an open source community. That means that the customer itself can be part of the developing process for signatures, and they can submit them back to SourceFire or Cisco now, and we can look at them and tune them and put them back into the marketplace so everyone can use them. To look a little bit about the security perspective, the threats today, and the problem today is threats. And today, I think, well, the last couple of years, things have changed pretty rapidly. If you go back like maybe more than a couple of years, maybe 5-6 years, we usually thought it was enough to have a firewall in front of the network, and that should be it. Maybe an IPS or IDS sensor to protect it. We was dependent on signatures for AV and stuff. today you have to assume that you have been compromised. And the reason for that is that the threats out there is much more sophisticated and advanced than it used to be. And we also have like a cybersecurity thing now called, well, cybersecurity is a lot of things, but the big thing about it is that it usually is powered by well-funded organization that not necessarily is after to break things. They don't want to go into a network to break it. They want to go into a network to steal information, and they are present for a very, very long time. It could be like a governmental operation like NSA. We have heard a lot about that lately as well. And we also have a big incident in Norway for Telenor the last year. Some people, after a while, discovered that all the major people at the CIO level had been compromised. They had received a fake email. It looked like it came from an internal source. All the people had clicked on it because it had an attachment pointing back to some reports, financial reports. And it had been present in the network for at least a year. And they discovered it because suddenly all these computers started to push data out to a site in India. And that is kind of very common in terms of what we call advanced persistent threats. They go into network, they stay hidden for a while, and if they can, they stay hidden for a very long time, and they steal information. So the question is, if you knew you were going to be compromised, would you do security differently? I think in most cases, the question is yes. But that is why we have kind of come up with a new security model. Now, we call it attack continuum, and it handles before, during, and after. And before is what we used previously, right? We had firewalls there, we had application control, we had VPN, we had patch management, and so forth, to be able to protect. And we still need that kind of technology there, right? We need to be able to put a defense up front, but in many cases it's not enough. And as I said, we have to assume that someone finds a hole there and are able to exploit that and goes into the network. And then we definitely need something during the attack to actually create logs, to create footprints, to see what has happened. And in my eyes, that is extremely important. We need to be able to track what is going on when there is an ongoing attack. Even though we not necessarily know that there is an attack going on, we definitely need to have the information there. That is why logs and CM's information or log systems is also extremely important. After the attack, we need to go back in the history to look at what has actually happened, try to figure it out, and block it. And this is a continuous process. This is not something that happens once. It goes on and on and on forever. And as I said, in many cases, well, I mean, to put it another way, we do like a security report once a year from Cisco, and the latest security report that we published, we have been talking to several hundred customers, and in that case, 100% of those customers had been infected by some kind of malware, even though they didn't know it in many cases, but they still had evidence inside the network that they had been compromised. So it's very important that we're able to look through this before, during, and after. And a big part of this is also reputation and analysis of logs. The other thing is that the extended network today is becoming more and more challenging in terms that we don't work within the perimeter of the office anymore. We normally do this everywhere. We have like mobile devices like cell phones or tablets, and we have laptops with VPNs, so we can connect in from everywhere. And also the virtual kind of thing. We move from a physical environment into a virtual environment. How to gain visibility into the virtual environment when you move from a physical server. You had control, you knew where it was, you knew what it did. Today, when you move everything into a virtual environment, you don't necessarily know what the virtual machines do anymore. Do you have the visibility inside the hypervisor? Can you get information from there? What is a virtual machine goes just to another virtual machine within the hypervisor? Can you look at that? It's important to have controls in place to be able to look at the different things. And as I said, it's a continuous process. You need to focus on all the different phases, and you need to be prepared. Just to map in to the different products that we have, and I think Cisco is one of the very few vendors out there that has products in place that can cover the entire attack continuum, and also products that can talk to each other, because that is also very important right now, that the products can exchange information to each other and use that information to block attacks. And I will, as I mentioned, I will talk a little bit more about advanced malware protection, which is a really, really nice feature that we have now that makes it possible to go back in time to see, like a flight recorder, what has happened in the network for the last couple of weeks or months. The other thing is that you still, as I said, you need a firewall, and you need a stateful firewall as well. There has been a lot of focus lately on the next generation firewalls with application recognition. That is good. You probably need that as well. It's a good feature. You should be able to block various applications out there, or at least control the behavior of them. But in many cases, you definitely need a full-blown stateful firewall that can do all the classic firewall stuff. The NG-IPS thing is well, the funny thing is that we have the NG firewall kind of thing, which is application thing. You have the NG-IPS thing, and they are kind of the same side right now. The NG-IPS do a lot of the things that an NG firewall does. It can block application, it can detect users, it can detect devices, and you can block traffic inline as well. And the fireside technology is something I'm also going to talk a little bit about. That's a technology. And it makes it possible for the IPS sensors to do a lot of the things that we have discussed already. And the enterprise network right now is seen as the extended network. And by that I mean that we move around a lot, right? We don't have the same perimeter anymore. We need to be able to control the same behavior no matter where the user are. So if the user connects in from a mobile phone or an application or an iPad or something, we still need to be able to enforce the same rules and the same detection mechanisms that we have in place within the company, right? Yeah, this is just a slide I wanted to show you from, we go now from like the smallest kind of things with an NG-IPS as well, up to the biggest with 50 gigs of throughput. And the thing is that all the things that we talk about today with SourceFire will also be integrated into the existing portfolio that we have with ASAs and ASA 5500X series. So this technology and this software will be part of the extended Cisco family moving forward. So that means that you can buy either an appliance, have a dedicated appliance in your network for the NG-IPS stuff, or you can choose to have a 5500X with a software component that do the same thing, or a blade in the 5585X that also does this. Today, SourceFire is managed through the Defense Center, which is a separate management tool. It gives you great insight into what is happening on the network, and that is also one of the components that has the fireside technology within it. It's high availability, it has hierarchical management, it's centralized policy administration, and moving forward, we will also integrate this into the existing management portfolio. So if you go in the end of this year, Cisco will have, or the aim is to have one management tool for all the things that we have in the network. You will have one management to handle ASAs, SourceFire components, the advanced malware protection, and the IPS. And it will be multi-tenant from day one. So this is Firesight, the technology I mentioned, and it gives the products the possibility to detect threats and other things. And this is done on the network level without clients. So you have an appliance sitting there, and it can detect users, it can detect applications, it can detect file transfer, and you can limit file transfer, and you can block certain types of file. The same in application protocols, malware, of course, which is really, really important, client applications, operating systems, and so forth. And the cool thing about this is that when you put this appliance into the network, it will do baselining for a while. You can choose that of your own, but normally you do that like a couple of weeks or a month. And then it will kind of learn how the normal network behavior is. And it's very easy then afterwards to see when something out of the normal happens. The other thing is that this information can be pushed back into the system. I will talk a little bit more about ICE afterwards, ICE, the Identity Service Engine, how this all things links together. And I think the important thing today is that we need to be able to detect users, and we need to have context. And context, by that I mean we need to be able to see that Andre is coming into the network. He is in the Cisco office, and he is now currently on his laptop. That is information which is good, because then Cisco knows that I am in a protected environment. I'm sitting on my laptop, and I'm connected to switch 2 in floor 3, for instance, or I'm connected to a separate access point. That information is available today through Identity Service Engine. Identity Service Engine today is the single source of truth. It knows everything. It knows who I am, which device I'm currently using, where I'm located, and which access method I'm using to go into the network. And that is information which is key to be able to kind of give the right access levels into the network. So, for instance, if I move out outside the office and connect into my iPad, we can change, right? We can change and say, okay, no, Andre is coming into his iPad. He's coming into VPN. Okay, then we block certain areas of the network. So ICE is an important component of this thing. And that is also what I see about IT Insight. And that is being able to spot anomalies and policy violations. And I think that is becoming more and more important as we move forward as well. As we start to work differently, we have different platforms that we work from. And we have also to expect in the future that different companies will allow people to come in and work from different platforms. I'm not sure that we necessarily will see all companies giving out laptops in a couple of years. Maybe we will just get a small amount of money over our payslip and say that, okay, you can buy whatever you want. We use VXI or virtual desktop or whatever to give you the applications you need, and then you can use whatever you feel comfortable with working. And that puts enormous weight on the network to be able to detect and control the policies. Automatic tuning is also important, I think, in terms that we need to see what is happening on the network. We need to correlate the information. We need to feed it back into the system so we can auto-tune the signatures on the fly. And we have to combine that with reputation. And the reason why I say that is that signatures is good for one thing, but the problem is that we get so many new malware each second. Like I think it's like 10 to 15 new malware pieces surfacing every second. And the other thing is that they are so cleverly written these days that they will change behavior and they will morph. So the signature that matched one malware at a certain point in time is useless after a couple of minutes because it has changed. That is why you need other mechanisms to detect it as well. And reputation is one of the most impactful methods of doing that. That we can use big data analytics and see what is happening and use reputation to block it. Yeah, this is just another kind of thing from Defense Center that will be incorporated into all our management products. And that is what you can just see all application traffic. You can get a look into risky applications automatically, and you can also dig into who is using them. So if you have something different on your network, you can just click on a specific user and you will get a report instantly on all the applications that particular user has been using for the last day, week, or month, and also the traffic it has generated. And on the timeline down there, you will kind of see the baseline. And if that is normal, it's okay, but you can also easily spot if there is an anomaly. Let's say you probably have a spike at 11 p.m. in the evening, which is not usual for your environment, right? Then you probably need to dig into that and look after anomalies there. It will automatically also do geo-IP location. So it will give you a location in clear text where the users has sent the traffic, which makes it easier to spot different things. And that also is important in terms of reputation, that you can go in and look at a certain kind of behavior. And I mean, this combined with NetFlow, which is like a flow analysis from a network, will give you great insight into what is happening. For instance, if you suddenly start to push a lot of traffic into a site in India, like Telenor, that you normally don't send traffic to, it's important to look into that to see what is happening. And the other thing is that if you also see that you drop, I mean, the easiest way to spot like command and control traffic is to look at reputation and NetFlow data combined with information from Identity Service Engine. And I think, as I mentioned, Identity Service Engine, the good thing about that is that, as I said, it has the context. It has the visibility into what is going on the user and device level. And all other kind of consumers of identity and that kind of information in the network can ask ICE for information. So let's say you have a collector that takes NetFlow data from your network. And that is good because you can see what has happened for the last couple of days or last month. But the problem is that you don't necessarily know who the user was that generated that particular flow. To get the NetFlow collector to talk to ICE, it will automatically correlate the flow data with the users and the devices. So when you then go into the analysis tool afterwards, you will get for each flow, you will get the username, and also, if you would like, the device that was used to generate that particular flow, which is extremely helpful in terms of detecting what is going on inside your network, and also to mitigate flows, right, or threats. Impact flag and recommended rules. This is also something you just get from default from the Defense Center. It will correlate information, it will look at information, and it will give you recommendations. And here you can see that it typically says that, okay, you're out, you should enable these signatures, you should disable these signatures, you should enable these and block for these signatures. And this is information the product is used, has been able to fix based on information in the network and based on information it gets from Identity Service Engine. And then, if you would like, you could just click on the button down there and it does everything for you. And this is also important in terms of automatic signature tuning, which we come back to here, right? But this is the technology that we will use among all our products moving forward. So you have like a component in the bottom, and it gets information from all the third-party products out there. It might be third-party applications. It might be AnyConnect for the VPN client. It might be from Active Directory or from other sources of information, and it certainly is from ICE. Identity Service Engine is key. And then you can see that we take that information, it's put into the system, it's used for analysis and other things, and we do a lot of things with information, and we feed it back into Snort, which is the rule engine, to be able to do automatic IPS tuning. And we can also feed it back into the other platforms that we have. And you can see the 1PK thing there. That's the API. And all the products that we have in the Cisco portfolio today will get the platform APIs. And that means that you can now talk to the products through a RESTful API, through XML. And it makes it so much easier to correlate information between the products. And they will also talk something called Platform Exchange Grid, which is a protocol that we have developed to be able to share information that the Identity Service Engine has to all the products. So for instance, if the firewall, the ASA, needs identity information, it will talk to ICE and say, hey, I need identity information for this particular user. And why is that important? most firewalls out there today, they use information from the security log in Active Directory to get that information. And that is good as long as the users are using Windows computers logged into the domain. What happens if you use a MacBook or an iPad or an iPhone? It doesn't get an entry into the security log for Active Directory, and you don't have the information you need to get the identity information. Then you need to get that on different means. It might be active authentication, that you have to actually prompt the user and ask, who are you? It's much easier to get it from one source that actually has the information already in there, and it knows the devices as well. And the same goes with route switches. You can ask for identity, and the same goes for Fireside or Open or SourceFire. It asks ICE for identity. So this is something we're going to use across all the different products that we have, and we feed context information into the system, and we do management and remediation back though. So we can block things inline in the product if you would like, or we can use other products in the network to kind of enforce the rules and the policies that we already had put in place. It could be that we use switches to block a certain port, or we could take down one particular application in the firewall, say that, okay, this particular user group, we don't want them to access Facebook, so we block it. Or we could kind of block certain applications within Facebook as well. But you still need a single source of truth for the contextual information. I mentioned earlier the advanced malware protection, which is a really, really great feature. And it gives you the possibility to go back in time, as I said, as a flight recorder, to look at what has happened. And we use kind of a cloud-based system for this. So we have big data to be able to kind of support the information we get. And we also use Cisco Security Intelligence together with the vulnerability response team to feed information back into the system. And I think to try to explain this is that for normal kind of sandboxing environments, you get like, well, let's say you try to do something with a file and you don't detect anything at that point in time. And the problem with the sandboxing technology today is that it takes a bit of time. So it's difficult to do it real time, right? If you want to send something into the network or users are waiting for a file, you don't necessarily want to send them an email and say, sorry, we detected an attachment in an email. Please wait 2 days and you will get the file, because then we have scanned it, right? You need to be able to do it right on time, and that takes time. And in many cases, you are not able to detect that it was something bad there, and you send it in. With the advanced malware protection features that we have, we can go retrospective back in time and look at what happened. And in a sense, that is, if you receive a file, what we do is that the first thing we do is just we make a hash of that particular file. And we ask the cloud, is that hash bad or good? And if it's good, okay, then we send it into the system. If it's bad, then we block it. If it's unknown, then it's become interesting, because then, okay, should we send a file into the network, or should we block it, or should we upload the entire file into the cloud for sandboxing? And that is what we usually do. And then you can say, okay, but I don't want to upload my kind of confidential data into a cloud that you guys own, so you can look at it. And that is true. So you can whitelist or blacklist what kind of files you want to send. Typically, you want to send like applications up to the cloud for sandboxing, but you could block PDFs and so forth. But that is also not a good thing to do, because PDFs today and images and stuff and Excel sheet and Word documents with macros is a big vector for attacks. So what will happen in the next phase is that we will be able to provide you guys with an on-premise solution where you own the sandboxing thing in your environment. We will send the file to a local sandboxing thing. We will do all the sandboxing and snapshotting and everything there. We will create a hash for that particular file. The hash will go into the cloud, so everyone else can kind of take notice of that. But your data stays locally in your data center. So then you can actually forward everything into the sandboxing solution. But the big thing about this is that if you at a certain point in time receives a file which is unknown, and you say, okay, I just submit it into the network, the users get it, and then after a couple of weeks you say, oh, shoot, this file was bad, it did something really nasty in the network. How would you be able to go and detect where the file had gone into a network and which devices it had gone into, right? That is what we can do with the advanced malware protection. We can go back in time and look at everything. And to be able to do that, we use a lot of kind of things though. And we use, the first thing we do is, as I said, we use signature matching. We try to match against known signatures. And if we see something, it's good. Normally, that's not that effective. So we use fuzzy fingerprinting. And what that is that we actually change the signature slightly to be able to detect malware that has changed behavior. So they don't match the initial signature anymore. And together with that, we also use a lot of components from what we call machine learning to be able to track and detect, and at the end, advanced analytics from the big data and the cloud thing. And the good thing about cloud, as I said, is that you don't have to have all these things in place yourself. And we can collect data from so many data sources out there, so it's easier to spot day zero attacks and so forth. Back to the retrospective security thing. As I said, we do continuous analysis. We use things from the cloud to be able to track, and we have what we call trajectory. And the nice thing about trajectory is that we can go back in time and get visibility across the organization, centering on a specific file. So let's say you had a file, it was unknown at the point when it entered the network. You let it into the network, and afterwards you find out, hey, this file was bad. Now you can actually go back and look at your entire network, focusing on that file, and you can see each device that file has touched for the last, since it entered the network, basically. So let's say it's two weeks since it entered the network. You can now go back and generate a report and say, okay, it touched these switches, these routers, these servers, and these endpoints. And then you can do device trajectory. So then you know which servers and endpoints that particular malware has been onto. Then you can dig into each one of those systems and see what had happened within the system. So you will get like a map and say, okay, this file came in, it infected 2 other DLLs, it spawned, it went to a site in Russia and collected some more malware, and it installed a rootkit and so forth. It gives you a complete flight kind of recorder of what has happened, and then you can go back and actually clean the system. So it's so helpful in terms of dig into the network. No one has this technology today besides Cisco. And this is kind of things that you will get answered, right? What systems were infected? Who was infected first? The patient zero kind of thing. What was the entry point? Where did the malware or the file enter the network? When did it happen? What else did it bring in? Very, very nice questions to get answer on. Before we had this technology, this was a very difficult task, right? Then you need extensive logging, and you spend weeks digging around in the system to try find out what had happened. Now you know instantly all the devices that this file has touched, and then you can go deep into each one of the endpoint systems and look. So then you can see, how did the threat go into the system? How bad is my infection on a given device? Go back to the virtual environment I mentioned in the start, right? You don't have that good visibility anymore into the virtual environment. You don't necessarily know that if one virtual machine is infected and it just jumps around inside the hypervisor to other virtual machines, where do you get the information for what happened? Now you can see, right? What communications were made. You can actually see from a specific systems what that particular system has done, and all the other systems that particular malware has generated traffic to, right? What don't I know? What is the chain of events? It gives you so much information, which is so easy to use to remediate and to take actions upon what happened. The other thing is that it gives you indicators of compromise directly in the management tool, which is really useful because in many cases, most of the things you get alarms from is things that you might, well, I mean, if something happens in a network, you usually get a lot of information, right, into the system. So you need something that are able to correlate this information in a good way and also give you the right indicators of compromise. And this gives you spot on. It tells you these systems you should definitely take a look at. This system, this switch, this router, you need to take a look at those systems because there is something fishy going on. So it makes it so much easier to be proactive versus reactive in terms of what you should do. A little bit about sandboxing. I mentioned sandboxing earlier, and it's an advanced kind of procedure because a lot of the malware out there today is also written in a very good way, and it has the ability to detect, right, that it might be in a sandboxing environment, and then instead of doing what it's supposed to do, it just sleeps. So it says, oh, shoot, I'm in a sandboxing environment, I just sleep for a week before I actually do something. But the good thing about the good written sandboxing engine out there as well, first of all, they write their own kind of hypervisor engine, which is not easily detected by the malware. The other thing is that if the malware tells the hypervisor to sleep for a week, it just says, okay, I'm slept for a week, let's go on and do the nasty things that you were supposed to do, right? And the other thing is that when you do the sandboxing thing, the customer will get a report back. So you guys will get a report back from the system with color-encoded lines, which tells you all the things that that particular malware has tried to do, and it will also give you screenshots. So if the malware tries to launch a pop-up box or a question to the end user, whatever, we can give you like a report back that gives you all the screenshots, and you can actually take the report and do whatever you would like with it, but send it out to your users and say, okay, if you see something that looks like this, it might be something bad and you should not click on it, or you should not answer yes to it, or whatever. So this is a service in terms that we automatically will sandbox files coming into the system. We will also let you guys submit malware to us. So if you have something that you potentially think is bad, you can submit it. We will do sandboxing, and you will get a report back that gives you all the nasty things that that particular malware did for your system. And this is also incorporated into all the products today from Cisco. The ASAs will get this kind of feature. The web security appliances, the email security gateways today will get these features in the next release coming out before summer. I mentioned Cisco Security Intelligence Operation, which is a thing that we have had for quite a few years actually. I think it's a well-hidden resource that we have within Cisco, which is extremely helpful in terms of reputation. This is something that we initially got when we bought the ARM portfolio, and then it was called kind of sender base. It was the feature that did ARM port email as the market leader, and we have kind of expanded the features into something called sensor base today. And in that perspective, we have we have close to 2 million sensors throughout the world that feeds data on a daily basis into this system. And that is all from ASA firewalls, IPS sensors, web security gateway, email security gateway, AnyConnect client, SourceFire products now in the loop. All these things feeds information into the system. So we receive more than 100 terabytes of data each day. And there is some numbers down there. They doesn't necessarily tell you that much, except that's a big number. But we see more traffic each day than Google sees each day. And that tells a lot. So everyone Googles everything all the time, right? So Google sees a lot of traffic. We see per day more traffic than Google. And it makes us, we get a lot of data. We can kind of look into, we can do analytics on it. And that data is kind of being looked at and massaged by a lot of people. We have different centers throughout the world, and those are obviously operating on a constant basis year round. And we have a lot of pretty good people working there as well that do like analysis of this kind of stuff. And we spend more than $100 million a year just for kind of trying to get these things up and running. And this is what gives us reputation back into all the products, right? So we feed information from the Security Intelligence Operations Center back into the products. And that is key in terms of reputation. That makes it possible to block day zero attacks out there. It's not possible anymore in many cases, or in most cases, to block these kind of things because it's unknown. They haven't been seen before, right? That is something that we feed into all the products. And normally, we will be able to block day zero attacks within 3 to 5 minutes because we have so large footprint throughout the world. So we can see that this is something that shouldn't be there, right? And we can take data and put it into context. And that could be like, let's say you have a web front-end server in your DM set, and you get some information, and you get some requests from some site in. You get like an SQL kind of request from a particular site. But if that site is from a known bad site in China, so to say, right? And we know that this particular subnet is known for hacking, for phishing, and for other stuff. That information is also key to be able to block that kind of thing. If you don't see all the information as a whole, right, you could let it through. But if you have the context around the information, it's easier to make a good decision on how to block it or not. Moving into the ASA Next Generation Firewall. It's been in the market for quite some time. It's fed by SIO, as I said, as long as the other products as well. And it's built on a stateful engine, which I think is really important, as I mentioned, because you cannot just rely on application recognition on the perimeter. Even though that's a good thing to have there, you need to be able to control that as well. But the firewall definitely needs to be able to block other things as well, right? So you need a stateful engine there that can do that with high speed, and it needs to be able to do the normal, like layer 3, layer 4 inspection as well. But as I said, we have like the threat intelligence fed by SIO, and we have the application recognition and the micro level detection, and that's the same thing kind of from all the NG firewalls out there. You need to be able to detect applications, and you need to be able to control the behavior within those applications as well, right? There is a separate page on cisco.com that gives you the status on all the different applications, but it's pretty much the same as everything else. The fingerprinting and the context kind of thing, and also the said active and passive user authentication. To be able to detect and block these things, right, you need to know who the user are, and also which device the user is currently using. And as I said, that information is fed into the system from ICE, or it can be fed into the system from ICE. It doesn't have to. We could go directly to the Active Directory and the security log and fetch this information as well. But as I said, the bad thing about that is that you don't get visibility across all your endpoints, because it's only the Windows-based endpoints that get the information into the security log. And you need a reputation-based content filter. And the reason I say reputation-based is that this is something that adapts on a regular basis, even by minutes, right? They change, and that's because one of the biggest attack vectors that we have today is web. The most infections happen through normal browsing on web pages you think is normal without anything, and the bad guys out there, they use this and and they also change domains all the time. So that you need a reputation filter which is adaptive and is constantly being updated to catch these things. And you need a visibility into the different devices. I think it's key to say that you need to be able to deploy this in multiple form factors. It could be physical devices, it could be virtual devices, and you need to have some way of look at the different data to get data from the system and to feed data back into the system, and that is done through APIs. And I mentioned context aware and threat aware. I think the definition on a next generation firewall is that it has to have like application visibility and it has to have threat aware or IPS capabilities. So all the projects, they have that. And I also said in the start that the NG IPS features and the NG firewall features is something that is merged together. So moving forward in time, I don't think you will necessarily see a big difference, except that you place an IPS sensor in different places in the network compared to a firewall. This is the kind of existing portfolio that we have today, from the smallest 5512, and all these firewalls can do NG kind of firewall features today. And if you come closer to the summer, they will also do like NG IPS kind of thing, which is basically more or less the same thing though, but you will get so much different features. Today, they will do what is on this slide, and with the speeds that you see here, and this is real numbers as well. So this is something that you can trust. This is something that we have tested, and so with NG firewall, you can see that you go from like 200 megabit per second from the lowest one to 1.4 gig on the biggest one on this particular slide. If you enable NG firewall features with IPS or threat prevention, it goes slightly down, and that's because there is a big hit on the engine when you do threat prevention on there. And this is something that you probably would like to test out before you actually see, because it varies a lot from different environments, how much impact it will have. The good thing about this particular platform though is that you can actually decide what kind of traffic you want to send to the NG firewall engine or the IPS engine from within the ASA, because the traffic hits the normal classic stateful firewall first, then you will create a rule in the ASA that tells which traffic you should forward to the NG firewall engine. So you can be selective in terms of what kind of traffic you will send there, and you can do this based on normal source destination IP address. You can do it by identity or contextual information, and you can do this by type of device. So there's a lot of things you can do to send traffic to the NG firewall. This is the larger appliances that we have, the 5505, and you can see that it goes from 2 gig per second up to 13 gig, which I would say is a pretty neat performance with NG firewalls, even though it drops a bit with the NG firewall plus IPS together. But it's a pretty fast firewall in terms of NG firewall features as well. And if you want to scale it further, you can actually bundle 16 of those together in a cluster. Management wise, they will look like one firewall. They have a intelligent way of forwarding traffic between the different firewalls, and you will then get up to 640 gig of throughput. So it's a pretty good, and we will actually scale it even further. So in the next release after summer, we will actually scale to 32 chassis in one cluster, which should be sufficient for a lot of environments. It's a stateful environment, so you can remove one of the chassis out of the cluster. It doesn't impact the existing traffic flows. The user would not recognize that one of the boxes went out of the cluster. All the feature licenses that you have will be available throughout the cluster, so you don't need to buy the same feature license for like 16 boxes. It's enough that you have it on one. It's supported from the management tools that we have today, and it will obviously be supported from the one management tool that we will create down the road. And the good thing is that you can start out with 2, and you can easily just add hardware after you grow. So you have like a pay-as-you-grow model. Configuration-wise, it's very easy. You don't have to do anything except putting in the cables and add into the sense that, okay, we have another member, and all the configuration, everything is just spanned down to the other members in the cluster. And we have a virtual firewall as well, coming out next month, which is a complete ASA firewall feature set in a virtual form factor. It supports multi-hypervisors, multi kind of vSwitch environments, so it will work on VMware, Hyper-V, KVM, Xen, and so forth. And it also have APIs for configuration and orchestration, and it's a flexible licensing. And as of now, it does 1 to 2 gig performance per virtual instance. And this is also the solution right now to scale if you want to have remote access for different customers. Then you just buy an ASAV, spin it up, and you terminate all the remote access for that particular customer in this particular firewall. And it's also used heavily in the data center to be able to kind of control east-west flows in the data center and to scale out the protection of different zones within the data center. And it supports site-to-site VPN. It supports basically all the features that the normal ASA has, except right now it doesn't have the NG firewall capabilities. It will have that further down the road. So this will be a complete NG firewall, NG IPS product down the road as well. And then one of the kind of big management tools that we have, which we also will continue with down the road, is the Cisco Security Manager. And it's a complete management tool for firewalls and VPNs in the portfolio. It recently came out in a 4.5 version, where we changed slightly the GUI, so it looks better. And you have some good widgets in the front dashboard, which makes it kind of very adaptive and configurable. And it do kind of everything from a security perspective, though. It does like policy management, log management, it does reports, it does health checks of the devices in the network, it does image management, and it has obviously north and southbound APIs as well. So you can use this as a single pane of glass management tool, or you can use it as part of a bigger management tool as well. So if you have an orchestration tool on top, you can feed information to the system through an API, and you can fetch information through the system from an API. So you have both north and southbound APIs. So the new thing about the 4.5 users, 4.5 release, was that first of all, it's mobility friendly. So you can also kind of access it from an mobile phone or an iPad, and you will get like a web page which is kind of adjusted and built for that particular device. And the other thing is that you have applications and widgets now, so you can kind of customize your front page to give you the information you would like to have when you log in. And it remembers this on a user basis, of course. So and it does like firewall IPS management for all the things that you have in the network. And it has a intuitive graphical interface with objects, is what it says though. But it's a pretty neat tool, and it gives you very good overview of all your different policies, especially if you have a lot of firewalls out there. And it doesn't matter if it's ASA, SM, if it's an all firewall service module, if it's an ISR or it's an ASR. I mean, you have one policy set defined in the tool, and the tool automatically configures the devices on the right way. So if you have objects, group objects, You can combine now IP version 4 and IP version 6 objects in the same object groups. You can do identity firewalling, of course. You can do fully qualified domain name. You can do geo IP kind of enforcement and so forth. You can do AD integration, or you can do ICE integration to get like the context information I mentioned earlier, to get like the correlation thing. And you can create model policies based on qualified domain names, like apps, Cisco.com, as I said. It does like a full IPS management, and now it will also kind of tells you, based on information it gets from the network, which signatures you should turn on and which signatures you should kind of block. And it also do a lot of kind of correlation and analysis on things. So it will kind of gives you recommendations on what you should do and not do in the network. So it makes it so much easier to kind of configure and tune your network. And this also works across different devices. If it's an IPS sensor, if it's an ASA, AIP, or if it's an iOS IPS sensor. And obviously SourceFire will be integrated into the loop moving forward. Simplified event management. We have kind of events coming in from all, so you have like a full log database in the system. So you can look up policies. You can search after a certain IP address or a username or a fully qualified domain name, whatever. When you get into the event manager, you can cross-launch from that particular entry in the log to the rules that generated that particular entry, whether that's a firewall policy or whether that's an IPS signature that fired. It will automatically point you in the right direction. And you can get like a lot of filters and custom views also. And I mean, you have native role-based access control, so you can, even though it's not like a multi-tenant tool, you cannot create a separate instance of this for each and every customer that you have, but you can create a role-based access that tells that this particular user can only see a certain amount of devices and the configs related to those devices. So you can block everything else. So that works pretty well. And you have the thing called workflow, which makes if you have different administrators or different people that do configuration from the network, you can kind of restrict. They are not able to kind of deploy the configuration before someone has actually gone through and see that, okay, this makes sense. Okay, he can deploy, right? Configuration archival, so you can go back in time and look at what has happened or what has changed in the devices back in time, and you will get like a very easy kind of side-by-side comparison with color coding that tells you that, okay, last night someone deployed something that this was the lines that was changed in the configuration, and it does that automatically. Each time you deploy something, it takes a snapshot of the configuration and stores it in the system, and which also relates back to automatic backup and restore. And that's what it is. That was what I had in mind. Do you have any questions? I think I was right on time as well. I mean, 57 minutes, it should be okay, right? So.
Thank you, Andre, for coming.
Thank you.
And spending your time with us and for an interesting session. Takk ykkur fyrir að koma. Við erum held ég akkurát á tíma, þetta bara eigum 1 mínútu hérna til að klára kaffið. Og ef þið hafið eitthvað spurningar núna, þá verður Andre hérna á landinu reynd. Annars eru Þórður og vörustjóri Cisco lausna og allur nethópurinn tilbúinn til að svara spurningum. Bara hafið þið samband við Opin kerfi. Takk ykkur fyrir.